Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. It is Saturday, December 9th, and you know what that means. It is time for the High Risk Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, bringing in the year out. I don't know. We here. Jeremy Pierce, welcome, one and all. You know you can check me out on the socials, Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube, Charismatic_Creations52 on Instagram, of course, the 215 on Twitter, Coffee, and Patreon as well. Creations. But today's show, we are going to be looking at, well, the worst of wrestling in 2023. These are the worst stories, some bad things that have happened, things that we look down upon. This show is going to be different. We're not doing any episode list. We're not doing a superstar spotlight, even though we probably could for one specific superstar. But we're just going to get into it, and we're just going to recap kind of the down of 2023. But for now, you know what's next, so just go on and hit my music. So 2023 is coming to an end, and I know it kind of sucks doing these kind of shows. I am always usually against doing a best of for the year when the year isn't over, because you could have a phenomenal match happen after you do your best matches of 2023 list. I'm sorry, best matches of the year list, like what happened last year when we got all these best matches of the year lists, and then we got the Speedball Josh Alexander match. So, but I'm hopeful that nothing else worse is going to happen. But things have happened in 2023. Things have gone down. There have been many highs and there have been many lows. So we are going to examine some of the things that happened, and it's a nice extensive list. So we're going to begin with Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Yes, this man that has escaped justice time and again. So Vince McMahon, quote unquote, retired and left. He was under investigation for some sexual misconduct, among other things. We know this man truly isn't a great person. So he retired. He left. And the company was headed by Khan, not Tony or Shad, and Stephanie. Then Stephanie left, and Triple H was put in charge of creative. Then rumors came out that the WWE were looking to sell themselves, which they did. They sold to Endeavor, merged the WWE with the UFC, and we got TKO. WWE's here, UFC's here, they're under TKO. And the thing is this: Vince McMahon essentially forced his way back into the company. That even though he was gone, he was still a majority shareholder, and he effectively said, I will not approve any television rights deals. I will not approve anything new unless I am back on the board. I am back in charge. I will not approve a sale of the company unless I'm in charge. And that's exactly what happened. That Vince came back. And that just wasn't the end of it. So with Vince coming back, there was the allegations of them trying to sign two AEW stars away back to the company. They were William Regal, who's effectively back with the WWE, and Swerve Strickland. Now, mind you, Swerve left the WWE. He got released. And it was good for him. They wanted him to play second fiddle to Top Dollar, who, mind you, is no longer in the company. So they go after Swerve. They go after William Regal. Now, this isn't anything new when we were talking about, trying to sign someone. But while they're under contract with someone else, wrestlers and promoters will tell you that there's no war, but bad faith critics can tell you that it's bad form to favor one company over the other. And that's essentially what happened. Still with Vince in power, Cody didn't finish the story. When he returned, it was one thing and one thing only. Finish the story. Do the one thing his father couldn't do and to make him proud. And that was to win the WWE Championship. That's win the WWE Championship. Now, when Cody won the Royal Rumble, we assumed that, he was going to be the one to dethrone Roman. And that he was going to go after the WWE Championship, whereas Roman could still be the Universal Champion. So Cody could win the WWE Championship, stay on Raw. Roman has the Universal Championship, stay on SmackDown. That didn't happen. Cody didn't win. Cody didn't get to finish the story. And Roman is still your champion. And here's the worst part. With Roman still being a dominant champion, and I'm all for a dominant champion, 1,000 days, so on and so forth, but Cody doesn't win. Roman's barely here. So what happens next is the WWE creates the World Heavyweight Championship. They bring back essentially the big gold belt, the greatest looking championship of all time, and slap a giant WWE logo on it and effectively give it to Seth Rollins. We knew Seth Rollins was going to get the championship. They held a tournament. The finals was Seth versus AJ, but we knew Seth was winning. So now Seth is a World Heavyweight Champion. Great. But this doesn't need to happen. Seth is essentially playing second fiddle to Roman Reigns. That's just straight up true. He's playing second fiddle to Roman Reigns, a dominant champion. And I'm here for a new world championship. You got to get things prestigious, but you wouldn't need to be in this position if you just had Cody win. And here's the thing. Instead of, just bringing back the old World Heavyweight Championship and carrying on its lineage, you created a new, lesser version of the same championship. And you couldn't even bring it back, because remember, it got unified with the WWE Championship. So essentially, right now on the main roster, they have 3 world championships. Seth is the World Heavyweight Champion, and if you go to the WWE website, if you go to Wikipedia and you look up the champions, there's 3 of them. Seth's the World Heavyweight Champion. Roman is the WWE Champion and the Universal Champion. That is 3 world championships. And you just can't merge them together, because Roman has the record as the Universal Champion with this really long reign over 1,000 days. So now you find yourself in a struggle. You have 3 world championships on the main roster. That doesn't make sense. You can't bring back the big gold belt. And now you have a quote-unquote world champion playing second fiddle to another champion whose championship was called the Undisputed. Undisputed means one. So Cody losing, yes, I kind of get it. It made sense. But you put yourself behind the 8 ball. Effectively, I think this is going to happen. Roman's going to lose at WrestleMania, probably to Cody. Cody's going to retire the Universal Championship. Roman now has that record as the longest reigning champion of the modern history with the Universal Championship. He's no longer a champion, so now we have the WWE Championship and we have the World Heavyweight Championship, and we can go forward with that. That's what I think is going to happen. Sticking with Cody and the regime under Vince McMahon, the Raw after WrestleMania. It was bad. Early in that year, they had Raw 30, the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw. I was there. It was in Philadelphia. My hometown. That show wasn't great. And then we get the Raw of WrestleMania only a few months later. And generally, the vibe for Raw of WrestleMania is a great show. Anything can happen. But for the last 3-4 years, the WWE have started to co-opt it, ruining it. And when WWE co-ops things, they essentially ruin things. They did it with Fandango. They tried to do it with the Yes Movement. And the show was bad. How bad? Certain things just didn't make sense. With Vince McMahon being back in charge, there was so much craziness and it was so hectic backstage that the show just wasn't going to be good. Triple H was effectively kicked out of power once again, and the changes that he was making were gone. Vince was back in power and changed the show. Brock returned, teamed with Cody to take on, I'm going to say Roman and I forget who his partner was. Supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be Solo. Brock turned on Cody. And we never, ever got a reason why. Because it's Brock Lesnar. Brock can do whatever the fuck he wants. So, once Vince McMahon sold the WWE, Endeavor essentially removed them from the creative process and say, hey, you can still do stuff, but Hunter is in charge. This is his baby. That's what we're doing. And I would say there are two lows for Triple H being in charge. The booking of the women's division on the main roster, not finding a suitable challenger for Rhea, who has been absolutely dominant, which I think they're building up to Rhea versus Becky at WrestleMania. And if they've been building up Nia Jax since she's come back. But it's not been great. But I would probably say the most egregious move was Jimmy turning on his brother. SummerSlam. It just didn't make sense. So if we look at SummerSlam overall, it was an okay show. Whereas SummerSlam from the previous year was great. SummerSlam had honestly two good matches. Seth versus Finn, Cody versus Brock, which were rematches from premium live events. Not to mention Seth being kind of a dominant champion at this point. When they built up Shinsuke and Finn throughout the year, neither one won. That's beside the point. We got the Ronda Shane MMA match, which was not great. We got Gunther and Drew, which was good and just wasn't up to what we expected from Gunther. Logan versus Ricochet, Asuka versus Bianca versus Charlotte were good, but whatever. The main event was Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns. Fantastic. It was all there. Jay had turned on Roman. Jimmy had helped. Well, Jimmy turned on Roman first, and then Jay joined. And if you've seen one Roman Reigns match, you've seen all Roman Reigns matches. They're slow, they're plotting, they're all about emotion and calculation. Roman dominates in the beginning for a short burst, and then the challenger dominates, and then Roman takes control again, and then it all falls down at the end where there is interference, and there was no greater interference than Jimmy costing his brother the match and become the world champion. And here's the thing, I get why he did it, saying that I don't want you to become like Roman. You don't know if he's going to become like Roman. You're making the assumption he's going to become like Roman. And I know what they're doing, because this is getting dragged out, and it's effectively working for Jay, who was shining on Raw, whereas Jimmy is back in the bloodline on SmackDown. And this was a great story, but it's now getting dragged out, and WrestleMania 40 has to be the end. I am perfectly fine with Jimmy versus Jay at WrestleMania. I am perfectly fine with that. Just make it happen, get it done, and let's finish this bloodline storyline. And the storyline will go down as one of the greatest storylines in pro wrestling history. But it's time. It's time to move on. Let's transition a little bit to one of the most random stories, the Lufisto situation. Lufisto is an incredible, accomplished professional wrestler on the independent scene. And she spoke about on social media her time in AEW and the aftermath of it. And essentially, this is a whole referendum on AEW's women's division at large, which we'll get into a little bit later. So essentially what happened was she worked one AEW show that was a April 2022 Dark Elevation taping alongside Emi Sakura and the Bunny versus Anna Jay, Ruby Soho, and Sky Blue. Yeah. And it didn't go particularly well, and there were multiple disagreements with the talents. There were agents, backstage staffers as a result. Now, I get it, because if you look at the team of Bunny, and Lufisto, these are veterans. They know what to do in the ring. Anna Jay and Sky, still new to the, they're new-ish. They're accomplished now and have grown tremendously. And Ruby's a veteran. So why didn't this work? Well, Dustin Rhodes, Billy Gunn, and Ruby Soho were name-checked in these stories. And a series of tweets were from those in the AEW locker room trying to pump up the women's division and having a different take working with Tony Khan. Everything died down, but it left a damaged and fractured reputation from the women's division. This is a veteran in Lufisto, and she got into a war of words with MJF. She even had to delete her Twitter at one point. This is a veteran who knows the business. Yes, she hasn't been signed by big companies, but that's okay. Not everybody's going to get signed by a major company. But was she wrong? And did you absolutely have to come at her like that? Sticking with the AEW women's division, what is there to say? It's gotten better, but it varies. We have the highs of the growth of Sky Blue, Anna Jay, the reimagining of Toni Storm into this great character. We had the return of Chris Statlander defeating Jade Cargill, but then there's things like the up and down booking of Ruby Soho, who just got a title shot with making the I want the belt motion. We've got the random four ways that happen all the time. We get the post-match attacks, which seem like it happens in every single AEW women's match, and that's not even mentioning the still one match per week streak on Dynamite. One match a week. And it seems like Toni Storm treats women's wrestling as a reluctant obligation instead of something to be strived for. You know why? The WWE and of course TNA can have their women open shows, close shows, open pay-per-views, close pay-per-views, get TV time, because they've given them the time to grow. There is no better company in the world for women's wrestling than TNA. If you want to make a good women's division, follow what they do. Excuse me. TNA this year celebrated 1,000 episodes. Do you know what the main event was? It was a 10-woman tag match featuring knockouts of the past, the present, and particularly the future. Fantastic, because they know how to treat women's wrestling. It gets no better than that. Why can't Tony Khan see this? And you know the worst part is, if you go look at Ring of Honor, where they have multiple women's matches on there, the best women's storyline in all of AEW Ring of Honor happened in Ring of Honor that Tony Khan booked with Athena and Billy Starks. That's a fact. Outside of TNA, I want you to look at the top women stories in professional wrestling. Which one is better than Athena and Billy Starks? There isn't one. We've got to hold Tony Khan's feet to the fire and say, yo, you have to do better. Please. And then we shift over to the WWE in their women's tag division, and it's like, do you care? Do you care? So I thought when Ronda and Shayna won the belts at WrestleMania, the division was going to be uplifted. These are two women, best friends, who was like, yo, we want to tag together. We want to be champions. We want to help elevate the division. And then, like, nothing happened. Nothing. Then they lost the belts, and they kept going back and forth. Raquel and Liv were champions at one point. And it's gotten better with Chelsea and Piper. Chelsea was champion with Sonya. Two champions this year got hurt. And it's like, you look at the main roster and you see the women's tag team wrestling isn't there. Even though they have tag teams, they have the way. They have Katana and Kaden. Now we have Chelsea, Piper. We have teams. Where the hell is Isla Dawn and Alba Fire? Where are they at? They lost the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships in a unification match against Ronda and Shayna and have just completely disappeared. Where are they at? You have bona fide teams on the main roster, and yet you're not doing anything with them. You have to be better. We move over to Rampage. I watch wrestling. I love wrestling. Rampage used to be a must-watch show, and essentially with this deal, the new deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, losing Dark and Dark Elevation, Rampage has become that. The ratings aren't great, which I expect on a Friday at 10, but you can get better ratings if you just book the show like a main show. It's not hard. I don't need to see matches where I know who the winner is going to be. You can do stories on there. And there are times where Rampage has been absolutely great, and you get your Rampage Squash of the Week, because there's always a Rampage Squash of the Week. But you just have to do better. Just book it well. Just be better in booking it well. It's that simple. Just book it better, Tony. And sticking with AEW, the one thing that's been very, very annoying to me is this wrestling tribalism, this quote unquote war between AEW and WWE. There's no war. I rarely, if ever, see wrestling fans really, really come hard at the WWE. And everything recently has been about AEW and their attendance. And yes, I know their attendance isn't great. And yes, that's partly on Tony Khan. Book smaller venues, book better shows. You'll look great. But this boils down to that once ECW and WCW were gone, WWE had no competition. So they need to try. So for 20 plus years, all we had was the WWE. We could have had TNA at a greater point, but we know the story of that. I don't need. And here's the thing. The funny thing is, nobody ever points out WWE's attendance issues, because there are attendance issues in wrestling in general. There are, but nobody ever takes pictures of what's going on in a WWE show. It's always about trying to shit on AEW, and I'm tired of it. I am absolutely tired of it. Yes, Tony Khan needs to be better. Tony Khan, if you ever hear this, be better. I will gladly help you book a better wrestling company and a promotion. I can do it. I know I can do it. Just be better. But we don't need this constant hate and focusing on ratings and a war. You should want the wrestling companies to succeed. WWE, AEW, TNA, MLW, AAA, Ring of Honor, New Japan, CMLL, Stardom, Shimmer. You should want these companies to succeed. Because when they all succeed, we succeed. Period. And this is the point of the episode where we get a little bit somber, because we lost some people this year. We lost a legend in Terry Funk, a legend in superstar Billy Graham, a tragic loss in Jay Briscoe. Droz passed. We lost Jerry Jarrett, the father of Jeff Jarrett. We lost Lanny Poffo. We lost a legend in the Iron Sheik. But I think the loss that hurt everyone the most was Bray Wyatt. And it was so shocking. Somebody go check on Eric Rowan, please. He's lost two of his best friends in like 2 to 3 years. The Bray Wyatt death hurt because, one, we lost, in my opinion, a wrestling genius, a wrestling mastermind who was excellent at storytelling and building characters, building a universe, and his return was so great. I was there for it. Extreme Rules, I was there for it. And you got to remember why he was going. He was originally released, and that's a Vince McMahon thing. And we found out he was sick, just like how Brody Lee was sick and was kept under wraps. And it just hurt. It was out of the blue. We lost someone who, in a short time, left an indelible mark on this business and in this industry. It was tough. And the tribute show was amazing. And I love tribute shows where we can continue storylines, but also pay tribute to whomever we need. I wish we could have gotten more Bray Wyatt. I wish Vince McMahon would have just let this man do his thing and be free. The Mercedes Moné injury. Mercedes Moné was hurt, I want to say earlier this year. I'm almost sure it was this year. New Japan was crowning a new, strong, openweight women's champion. They were having a tournament. The finals were Willie Nightingale versus Mercedes Moné. This bet was essentially created for Mercedes Moné. She got hurt in the match, and Willow became champion. Great. I love Willow. Willow deserved it. The Mercedes Moné got hurt again. Kind of tweaked that injury. And she's just been out. Made a quick appearance at All In, and I really was hoping she would debut for AEW, but this injury has set things aside, and now it looks like there's a strong chance she could be going back to the WWE. I don't want her there because, one, she's always played second fiddle to Charlotte when she should not be playing second fiddle to Charlotte. I think Mercedes Moné / Sasha Banks had the opportunity to go down as the greatest women's wrestler in the history of the WWE. That's how good she is. But she always played second fiddle to Charlotte. She played second fiddle to Becky and was never treated like the star that she clearly is. And now I'm skeptical about her going to AEW because of Tony Khan. Mercedes Moné and Julia are free agents coming up. Where will they go? Both companies already have large rosters, but one company can actually improve greatly by signing these two superstars and giving us that dream match. Speaking of the WWE, the failing of, there's no youth movement on the main roster. What do you mean? Well, I want you to look at all of the top stars on the main roster right now. LA Knight, Roman, the Judgment Day, Seth, Lashley, AJ, Drew McIntyre. Look at the women. Charlotte, Becky, Bianca. Let me give you these ages real quick. Roman's 38. Cody is 38, which I get. Men, I get it. Roman's not full-time. Seth is 37. LA Knight's 41, who was super over, but he's not getting much better in the ring. Damian Priest is 41. Finn is 40. Drew McIntyre is 38. Sheamus is 45. Bobby Lashley is 47. Don't know how Bobby Lashley is 47. Lord. AJ is 46. Charlotte is 37. Becky is 36. Bianca is 34. That inexplicably leaves who's the true young woman star on the division and main roster. It's really only Rhea. Rhea is 27. She's the future, but she's here now. I love Bayley. I love Asuka. Asuka's in her 40s. I love Io. And all the youth is essentially in NXT. I mean, we have Solo and Dom on the main roster, but Braun Breaker, Mello, Trick, Tiffany Stratton, Lola Vice, Roxanne Perez. Yes, we finally called the Creeds and Ivy now, but we need more. And here's the thing. It's going to be hard to call these young stars because we have main roster stars that are just good. You can't just get rid of them. And then we have failing Austin Theory, who got a push and defeated John Cena at WrestleMania. And we did absolutely nothing with it. Theory is bland. He is boring. He looks good. But like, what is there? Grayson Waller is what Vince McMahon thinks Austin Theory is. And yes, now they're paired up. Austin Theory seems better. But we did not capitalize on Austin Theory defeating John Cena. Hell, we didn't capitalize on Shayna knocking out Ronda or Zoe Starks knocking out Trish. You need the youth. And this is what happens when you have such a large roster. And lastly, you know who we've got to talk about. CM Punk. Where do I start? Where do I go? I will boil it down to the two main points. Tony Khan should not have catered to CM Punk fully. Yes, you cater to your stars, you build them up, but you don't give them everything they want because you have to let them know at the end of the day, I am still the one in charge. As much as I despise Vince McMahon, that is the one thing he has always done. I am still the one in charge. This is the same man who released The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Just saying. So essentially, after CM Punk's injury, right, we got Collision. AEW Collision was essentially made for CM Punk. It was made for him. It was to be his show. So much to the point that he got to pick and choose who got to be on the roster for Collision. It was like a soft brand split. It was his show, and he came back. He was calling himself the real world champion. Okay, whatever. But there's only so much you can take. There's only so much you can do before you gotta go. I truly think CM Punk is a good person. I think if you're on his good side, he's your best friend in the world, but he has this mentality that if he feels like you disrespected him, he will become your worst enemy. And his short time there was great, but also contentious. This all boils down to what happened at All In. So CM Punk essentially nixed Jack Perry from using Real Glass in his feud and Jack Perry's feud with Hook. And CM Punk essentially thought that Jack Perry wanted to use the excuse of Real Glass to get time off of work. You're not involved with this feud. You're not involved with these wrestlers. You don't get a say in what they can and cannot do. So, at All In on the pre-show, Jack Perry and Hook had a match. On camera, after I think Jack Perry gave a suplex to Hook on the limo he came in, and he said on camera, Real Glass, who would have thought? Something like that. He essentially mocking CM Punk. So after the match, they're going backstage in a gorilla position. The first match on All In was CM Punk versus Samoa Joe. So as they're making their way back in the gorilla position, A scuffle ensued with Punk, with Jack Perry, with Tony Khan. And Tony Khan revealed that he personally felt threatened. And Punk got fired with cause. Yes, you don't threaten the boss. Again, who do you place the blame on? Well, one, you place the blame on Tony Khan for giving CM Punk whatever the fuck he wanted. Two, I put a little bit of blame on Jack Perry for mocking him. But again, you can do whatever you want. And three, it's clearly on CM Punk. You got mocked. Grow up. Grow up. It's not on you to decide what can and cannot happen on other people's matches. You are not in charge. And the blame still lies with Tony Khan. And the crazy part is when he fired him, the very next show was a Collision in Chicago. Punk's down back in the WWE. Hell froze over. He can't screw up there. He can't. You have to take the good with the bad when it comes to CM Punk. But that is the worst of wrestling in 2023. Did I forget anything? I probably did, but I felt like these were the big stories of the year. All right. But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Next week, we have episode 154, which is the top stories of 2023, which is going to be really good. And we got a Flashback Friday coming for you as well. Don't forget to check out the socials on Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube. Charismatic_Creations52 on Instagram. And of course, the 215 on Twitter. And as always, Willow Nightingale, Gigi Dolan, Isla Dawn, Bailey, and Chris Statlander. Holla at your boy. Peace.